Fred fed Ted bread, and Ted fed Fred bread. What's going on, you guys? My name is Matt, and I gotta tell you, I am so thankful for you because I have tried to talk to my pets about Air Pokemon cards. I will talk for hours and hours with them, and they really do not seem to resonate with it. But I talk on YouTube here to you all, and you seem to enjoy it. So I really appreciate it, and let's get right into this week's video. Kicking things off this week, we have a base set Charizard with the black dot error. On the bottom of the card, there is a black dot covering a part of Nintendo, and the hollow foil is actually shifted up a little bit. This is a repeating error, so this is the same throughout all the different cards that have this error for base set Charizards. And this card did not sell for that much money when you think of base set Charizards. Typically it goes for around $202, but this one only sold for $162.50 this week. This is probably due to the condition of the card, but I have seen Charizards in worse condition sell for more, so I'd say the buyer got a good deal this week. And boy, we're hitting some hard-hitting reality early on in the episode this week. We have a first edition Zapdos with the Evolution Box Hollow error. So basically what this is the top left portion of the Hollow Box is missing, and that is because that is where the Evolution Box should be, but obviously there's no evolution of Zapdos, and so that portion of the Hollow is missing. And this is a standard error across every single first edition fossil Zapdoses, meaning it's not rare, it's actually the only one. It's a cool card, but you can see that the buyer way overpaid. So this was an auction this week, 15 bids, and they overpaid by about 3 times, I would say. So if you get this card graded, you'd have to get at least a grade 9 in order to make a profit with purchasing this card. So I think the lesson we can learn here is that you should really subscribe to my YouTube channel because I could have helped prevent a disaster like this. But yes, this card sold for $113.50. Next up, we have a Boldore from Evolving Skies, and this is a severe miscut that actually has 2 square corners. And we got a few alignment dots sprinkled in here. I believe I counted 3, but my eyes could deceive me and there could be more. And this definitely added a good amount of value to the card. And I gotta tell you, when I was searching for the non-error version of this card to put on the graphic here, I actually came across another Boldore for sale that had a similar miscut. That's still on eBay right now. And I just thought it was fascinating that it has the 2 left round corners and the 2 right square corners. Just about a similar card. It's a little bit wonkier than this one, but it makes me wonder if these were printed at near similar times. This error definitely added some value to the card. You can see average price is 99 cents, but this card sold for $40 this week. And that makes the error value increase 3,939%, which is good enough for number 7 this week on our list of error value increases. Next up, we have a Charizard EX from Paldean Fates with a severe miscut. There is another portion of a card on top of Charizard here. I would say a good, what would that be, 10 millimeters, maybe a centimeter of an extra card on top of it. And in a graded PSA 8 miscut, this definitely added some value to the card. You'll see another example of a miscut that did not sell for as much money, and is because Charizard demands a high sale price almost every time. Average PSA 8 for this card typically goes for around $15, but this one sold for $156 this week. Next up, we have a Braviary with a crazy twisted miscut here. I counted 5 alignment dots on here. We have 3 in the front and 2 in the back. And boy, did something happen during the printing process. That sheet must have been real wonky when they were cutting the cards. There's other examples from the specific sheet that got sold this week, so we'll talk about those later. But boy, does this really just add a premium to the card. I would say the threshold for next level modern cards is around $50. If you can get a modern card that sells for around that, that's just a whole different ball game than the other Pokemon cards. And you can see this one sold for $97.95. It was the best accepted offer price. Typically goes for 99 cents, and that gives the EVI 9,794%. And that's good enough for number 3 this week on our list. Next up, we have a base set Charmander with a Printer Hickey. This location of this Printer Hickey is dangerously close to some other repeating printer hickeys that have been known for a base set Charmander. You can see in the description here, it says there's one where there's a printer hickey over the H in Scratch, but then there's a second one which is over the MIT in Mitsuhiro, and this one's just to the right of that. So whenever I'm looking at base set Charmander online, I always look for those locations, basically center of the card and bottom left of the card, to see if there is that hickey. But this one's just right next to that one. So I don't know if this is a repeating error or not. There might be a few cards out there like that, but it's not one that's really recognized too much in the community. I also gotta say, I always just love printer hickeys on fire type Pokemon. Having the red dot surrounded by the yellow just matches the whole theme of the card, and I absolutely love it. This card sold in auction this week, had one bidder, and sold for $20. What the heck is that? Matt, why are you showing two different cards here? Shouldn't you just be talking about one card? Well, actually, I am talking about one card. The front of the card is on the right. That is the grayscale with the yellow border. And the back of the card looks like a standard Pokemon card. There are several other cards known that have this error, and I believe these actually came out of the factory. These are legit cards. Boy, do they sell for a lot of money. This example was a CGC 5.5, and this sold for $1,300. And that is the highest sale we have this week for our Air Pokemon cards. So I have a top 5 list for the highest sale prices, and this is number 1 this week. Just an absolutely fascinating card. I can't imagine if someone actually pulled this out of a pack what the reaction would be, but holy cow, that's just awesome. Next up, we have a base set 2 Machop with an inverted back and also a miscut back. Now, we've seen several examples of this before. It is known, it's actually marked on an error site that I follow where I kind of keep track of different error cards. It kind of gives me the history of them. And this site mentions that there are known examples of this error throughout every card in the set. So to have it miscut on the back and also inverted in the back. And one thing that surprised me, look at that alignment dot in the top left corner on the back of the card. It kind of looks like a printer hickey almost. And I saw one example of this before where I saw a card that had a hollow shift and it had an alignment dot too, and the alignment dot was not lined up with the rest of the card. So this alignment dot looks like it's right in the center of the circle, so I'm not sure what causes this, but I definitely do think it makes that card that much more interesting. And this card was listed for $54, but had the best accepted offer price of $50. And with an EVI of 3,256%, that's good enough for number 10 this week on our list of EVI. Number 10 is over 3,000. Wow. Got an interesting week this week. Next up, we have Reverse Hollow Execute from Legendary Collections, and this is a Hollow Shift error. And this Hollow Shift can only be seen by the Psychic energy and these 2 Grass type energies on the left side of the card. And believe it or not, this is actually a repeating error. And I thought it would have sold for more. I believe in my 19 weeks of doing this show, this is the first example I've seen show up that has been sold. And I just assumed that any reverse hollow from Legendary Collections is going for over $70, $80 at this point, especially in error. I thought this would be 3 figures pretty easily. But I guess I'm wrong. I'm never afraid to admit I'm wrong. If you've seen me before, you'll know that. And yes, this card sold for $50 this week.
Ward, I think you were a little hard on the Beaver. So was Eddie Haskell, Wally, and Miss Cleaver. This guy keeps screaming. He's paranoid. Quick, someone get his ass another steroid.
I've never heard of the Pokemon Cleaver before, but here we go. So we have a Cleaver that has a double print error on the back of the card. And I don't have just one photo of this. I'm going to show all of the photos in the listing because there's a lot of them and it kind of shows better details. So you can see sprinkled all throughout the back of the card. It's very faint, but it's the faint printing of the front of a Pokemon card. I mean, obviously, the front is a Cleaver V. And I typically think that double prints sell for a good amount of money, but I think due to the fact that this one is so faint on the back of the card, that would explain why it didn't sell for as much as I thought it would. Yeah, overall, just a very unique card, and this card sold for $30 this week. Next up, we have a Venusaur EX with a miscut. If you haven't noticed this week, we have a lot of miscuts, and usually, in any given day, this Venusaur EX would be known as like a pretty cool miscut, a cool card, but I think it's kind of overshadowed by all of the other interesting miscuts we have, and boy, there are some more interesting ones to talk about in the rest of this episode. So, Yeah, I guess this card usually sells for around $19.50, but this one sold for $50 this week. I'm sorry, Venusaur, you're my favorite Pokemon, but definitely not even close to the most interesting card this week. Next up, we have a Trevenant V with a twisted miscut. And this is an example where you have a full art miscut that sells for a lot of money. Really jacks up the value here. Typically goes for $5.14, but this one sold for $250. You can see this card is consistent on both sides with how much it is miscut. And yeah, $250 for a modern Pokemon card. That's absolutely crazy. The error value increase is 4,764%. That's good enough for number 5 this week on our list of EVI. There we go. And it's also number 4 this week on our list of highest sale prices. $250 for modern Pokemon card, ungraded. Wow. Next up, we have a Lechonk, Japanese Pokemon card with a texture shift. Now, typically I don't like to show these errors unless it is pretty apparent, and I would say this one is. If you look at the photo right above me, you can see that the outline of Lechonk is definitely shifted pretty significantly to the left, making it pretty apparent that this is a texture shift error. And this card sold for $20 this week. Alright, now we're headed over to PWCC Auctions, and there is a CGC-10 Mankey with an additional ink error. I haven't seen a reverse holo with an additional ink error like this before. I think it's fascinating, and it's also fascinating that you can get some crazy deals on this auction site. I think people think of PWCC as selling some high chase cards, some really expensive cards, and I think they do. But they also sell these lesser cards too, and I think it just is not on people's radar, so you can get some great deals. You can see the EVI was only 68%. And yeah, again, if you are a card collector or an error card collector, I suggest you go over there and try to find some good deals. Let me know if you find any. Tell them I sent you. Next up, we have Machamp from XY Evolutions with a miscut. Now this one's pretty severe. Again, I believe I'd call a severe miscut with something that has another Pokemon card attached to it. So you can see top portion of the card, you have another part of the bottom of a card there. And even with all of this, I'm surprised it sold for as much as it did. You will see some vintage Pokemon cards like OG Base Set and Base Set 2 and Fossil cards have a miscut like this and not sell for this much. So I do think that there might not be as much value as there is displayed here. This might have been a fluke, I don't know. But regardless of that, a very interesting card, and this one sold for $75.20. Next up, we have a Pyroar with the edge of a sheet miscut. So this was the same seller that sold the Braviary, and you can see that the bottom of the card there, where it kind of doesn't have a complete Pokemon card look, that's the same on the Braviary, but it's also the same on the Trevenant. But the Trevenant V was sold by a different seller, but I think all 3 of those cards were from the same Pokemon sheet that got severely wonky miscut. And I've been told before, and I think that holds true here, that cards that have a miscut and it shows a part of the edge of the sheet definitely sell for more, and it just adds more value to it. And so that white portion that is on the left side of the front card and the right side of the back card is the edge of sheet. And boy, that is just so unique. I absolutely love that. So price charting is inconsistent sometimes, and it says that the average price for a raw card like this is 46 cents. But there are other cards this week that did not have an actual price attached to them because price charting didn't include them. And so I just had to assign them a price of 99 cents. And I always like to include a shipping price too if someone were to buy this card. And so I think 99 cents for a baseline is probably right for this card. So with my extra rule added here, average price of 99 cents, this one sold for $95, and that gives the error value increase 9,496%. And that's good enough for number 4 this week on our list of EVI. Whoa, what? Not a Pokemon card. I gotta tell you, I was into Yu-Gi-Oh cards when I was growing up, and I really don't care about them too much anymore, but there are still a few cards that make me very nostalgic, and one of them is the Blue Eyes White Dragon. And so I thought I would search eBay, see if any got sold recently that have errors, and this one popped up. This is a Blue Eyes White Dragon SDK 001 with a missing ink error. This is most apparent on the stars above the Blue Eyes White Dragon artwork. And just overall, the card looks more faded. Some of this could be due to the different angle, but I do think that that missing ink does contribute to the card looking quite a bit different. And this card sold for $180 this week. Only Yu-Gi-Oh card I'm talking about, just want to mention it. Next up, we have a Roggenrola with a miscut. This one is shifted severely to the left, and you can see a good portion of another card on there. And I believe there are 4 alignment dots. I believe there are 5 alignment dots. There's 1 on the top that's hard to see, 2 on the bottom and the front, and then 2 on the back of the card as well. Average non-error price was 83 cents, but since to this correction I had to make this week, it is 99 cents. And the sale price of this card was $41. That makes the EVI 4,041%, which is good enough for number 6 this week on our list of EVI. Next up, we have a Simisear V-Star from Crown Zenith with a severe miscut. And this is the example of the card that I said did not sell for very much. So I think Charizard added the premium to that one miscut card, and the Simisear V-Star, obviously you can tell, isn't really that big of a high value card to start with, but getting it graded, getting a CGC 9, only added an additional $11 to this card. Which is a shame. It's a very unique card, and you can see another portion of a card on the bottom of it, but only sold for $21.43. Next up, we have a Defender training card from base set 2 with a multiple printings error. Clearly that is on the back of the card. You can see a double printing here where there is the regular Pokemon card, and then it got printed again lighter to the right of it, causing this very mesmerizing error. Oh yes, and this got graded a CGC 8. This card was listed for $350, but had the best accepted offer price of $275. That is not in our top 10 for EVI, but is number 2 this week on our highest sale prices. Hi, this is Editor Matt with a interjection into the video. I just got done editing the full video and realized I forgot this one card, and it's in the top 10. So here we have a Jolteon VMAX with an inverted and miscut back. It sold for a lot of money, $150, and the EVI is 3,659%, which is good enough for number 9. Back to the regular video. Next up, we have a base set Abra, which is known as the Jet Plane Abra. There is a repeating printer hickey next to the tree there on the left of the artwork, and that adds 15,266% value to this card. Absolutely incredible. This is one, whenever I am searching eBay, just kind of scrolling through regular listings, my eye always goes right to that spot on the base set Abras that I see, because if you don't know what you're doing, if you have an untrained eye and you're just listing a Pokemon card for sale, I could see how that would slip through the cracks, and I'm sure there have been examples before where people have found these out in the wild without someone knowing that it is an error card. And man, I always love seeing these sell, but this one sold for a lot, $256.62. You can see above me I have the back of the card because I wanted to see, maybe this is in perfect condition. That's why it sold for so much. But there's a lot of fraying on the edges of the card, and it doesn't seem to be in that great of shape. I don't know really what this would grade for because I'm not a grading expert, but yeah, this is one of the highest examples I've seen for a Jet Plane Abra error card. And that 15K error value increase is good enough for number 2 this week on their list. And that sale price is good enough for number 3. Next up, we have a Wurmple with an additional ink error. It doesn't say anywhere in the description, but it looks like this is an additional yellow ink that just kind of makes the whole card look a little bit more faded. It's like you change the opacity a little bit so it's a little bit harder to read. And you can see it is really consistent just about through the whole card here. And this card sold in auction, had 10 bidders, and had a good sale price, I would say, especially for a modern card and an auction card. It sold for $66. The error value increase is 3,805%, which is good enough for number 8 this week.
Where's the rest of you?
Where's the rest of you? That's the first thing I thought when I saw this card. That's why it is the thumbnail this week, and also I just played that clip. Holy cow, what an interesting card. This is just about as severe of a miscut as you can get. I'd say any more severe, and I almost wouldn't want it because it'd be hard to tell what Pokemon card it actually is. I had to do a little bit of research even to tell what card this was by the set number. And yeah, the factory butchered this one. This is definitely one of the crazier miscuts that you will see. It's funny, this is like the final boss of miscuts, but it's small. So I guess it wouldn't be too hard to defeat. I really don't know. That analogy doesn't make too much sense. Price charting does not think this card exists at all. This Togamaru, I could not find any information on it, so this is the one I was referencing before. We have the average non-error price 99 cents, which I think is pretty accurate. And this sale price of $200 was good enough for number 5 this week on our list of highest sale prices. And obviously, with over 20,000%, 20,102% error value increase, that's number 1 this week on our list of error value increases. I gotta tell you guys, it's been a busy week, but really enjoyed filming this. Thank you all for the support. I've been getting a lot of comments and a lot of likes on my last couple videos, and I've really been enjoying that. So if you have anything to say, just want to tell me something, just say hi, whatever, please leave a comment. I always respond and I always will. And I appreciate the hell out of you, and I will see you guys next week. Goodbye.